multiple down here, and then we can hold down Control Shift and tap, and that'll unhash everything. And then we can go through here. I'm going to move this out of the way. You can go through here and you can Control Shift and drag, and then Control Shift tap to unhash everything, and then you can move all of these things at the same time. So we can hit W, move in here. You could also alternatively merge things together. We have subdivision history on these, so I would prefer not to if we could. So we'll go ahead and try this first. So we have perspective turned on, and while we're doing this, it might be a good idea to go in here to modify our movie timeline show, and we'll go ahead and set a key to where this is fairly accurate. So we've got his shoulders lined up, we've got his knees lined up, so you can see his head's very small. Now he's not posed, although this is fairly neutral. He's kind of hunched over a little bit, so it's not terrible. But you can see we have shoulder and then feet. Hey Chris, thanks for showing up. We're fixing some scale issues here, so we're going to scale this non-uniformly. Let's turn on LSIM so we can scale across that local axis over there. And oh boy, so sometimes when that happens, let's go out of solo mode, let's go out of move multiple. So for example, let's try this. So if I scale this up, you're going to see this guy just goes bonkers out of nowhere. I could exclude these from the selection and just scale these things as needed and move this laces, because my normal fix would be to mirror and weld these shoelaces, but they're not mirrored, so I guess we'll leave that. Also, I forgot to set a key, so let's be smarter than that, Mike. So we have a shoulder again, we have a feet again, and we will now set a key. And then now we'll go over here and we'll scale this out like so. And I'm just going to nudge this over, and that matches a little bit closer. So his feet are a little bit closer matched. And I'm also going to, once I make a major change like that, I'm going to have my reference down here, and I'm going to make sure that it's not just completely bizarre, which is what they kind of look like. So let's go back into move multiple, and I'm going to scale them up just a bit, just to give them some thickness. And then we can go around here and make minor changes as needed. It looks like, well, that's not far off. It just looks a little bit bizarre. So I'm going to go through here, and we're going to say W, turn off move multiple, and I'm just going to use the move brush to go through here and kind of tweak this up a little bit. So I'm going to go to the side here, go ahead and mask that bottom out, Control tap to blur that mask maybe. There we go. I'll kind of anchor those bottom points there, and then I can just go through here. Also another thing that I don't remember why I did it necessarily, but I do have, well, I guess because we were sculpting. Normally my block out would be completely done before I would go in and sculpt detail, but sometimes it's fun to sculpt detail early. So we're going to go through here, and we're just going to move this stuff around, and this is towards the front of his foot here, and that's about right. And we can always go back through and make, oh my gosh, sorry, my keyboard's sticking a little bit here. And then whenever I hit Alt and whatever that button is, it wants to pop open a new menu. Okay, so we've got this. Now we've got these shoelaces we can move into place. Like so. Now again, like I was saying, I could scale these across their local axis now, and it seems to be working okay. Just with the other subtools, it was not behaving correctly. So we'll go ahead and mask this side out. Actually, we'll turn off Symmetry here, and then we'll move this one into place. And then this one we can mirror over. So I'm going to do a quick mirror and weld with LSIM turned off. And then we can turn LSIM back on in case we do want to scale this. And now I can kind of move these into place a little bit. And then, so that was one change we made, and then let's go ahead and use our arrow keys to go, oh my gosh. Well, go ahead and save that for me, thanks. Let's go ahead and clean this file up. It might be having a little bit of residual since we've crashed a couple times. We'll go ahead and clean this file out. So one easy way to do that is go to your recovered Z projects. Let's just grab the Z tool here. And first we can save this real quick. So streaming, well, over here. Turtle power, bebop. So we'll go ahead and save this as working blockout 06. And let's go over here to subtool, and we're going to say all high. And then we're going to say merge visible. And that's going to, I mean, another thing you could do, oh, you know what? We have a lot of fun little nano mesh techniques on here, don't we? We could do this. Let's get rid of this one. Actually, that should be fine because we're just replacing those with some bullets, and the array mesh we can reset up. It's not a huge deal. Another thing you could do is you could take all this and you can go into your Z plugins, and you can say clean tool master, and you could say BPR to geo on everything, so BPR to geo all, and that'll convert any sort of nano mesh and array mesh to actual meshes. And then when you go to merge everything, everything should be there. And then so we're all high, and then we'll do another merge visible. And again we can recreate that stuff, but here you can see everything shows up. So we'll go ahead and take this one and we'll say delete. And we have this one, we'll say delete all. And then for this one we'll say 07. And now that clean tool master, you can use that to clean up a bunch of stuff as well if you want to just manually go through. And like you can see, decrease Z tool file size, texture cleaning, subtool cleaning, history, and all that stuff. You can get rid of that. But this is another way just to very easily clean out any sort of mesh problems you've had. Now at this point, you could go to, you could give a shot. Let's do this. Let's clone this off just in case this doesn't work that well. And then we can go over here to split to similar parts. And generally this does a pretty good job. We have a lot more subtools than we normally do, so let's take a look at that. Oh yeah, so this all the shoelace stuff is going to have to be merged down, and it's all usually in pretty good order. So I'm going to go ahead and say merge all these things down that make sense. And then here we got the rubber of the shoe, and then the back and the front. Now these ones need to be merged here. And we're gonna reconstruct subdivisions as well. And then these glasses can be merged. And we're not losing any creasing or any polygroups or anything like that. It's funny that these are similar because I mean, they have the exact same vert count, I suppose. But we can go ahead and just take this one and split it off. And then same thing with these nano meshes. Funny. These we can keep around. I guess we can go ahead and hide them. We don't need to see them because we've already converted that geometry. And we can always recreate that too. And we'll go ahead and merge all these together. And then, yeah, the nose ring and those were made from the same torus, so we'll go ahead and split those off. And then leg. And then these two can be merged together. His necklace stuff can be merged. I don't remember if that was nanomesh or not. And then he's got his pants. His chains are fine. Oh, his ears got split off. We'll go ahead and merge those down. And then his hands are fine. Tusks, face. I don't know what that is. Let's go into solo mode. Oh, his little tie back for his hair. His little mullet thing. Shell. Okay, so now all these need to be merged here, 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 here. And then we're good. So now let's say this is clean. We'll go ahead and save over that. All right. Hopefully fewer crashes on this file. Hey everybody, thanks for showing up. Yeah, if I was sponsored by Taco Bell, boy, I could probably just stream full time. That'd be fun. Cool. So my dog, we have Pepper and we have Whiskey, and they're both downstairs sleeping with their mom because they get to sleep in. Now, I don't actually mean that. She usually wakes up earlier than I do, and she's probably fixing to work out. Fixing to. That's what we say in Texas. Have you tried reality capture? If yes, what's the difference between Stream RC and standalone reality capture software? Ooh, yes, I have. On that note, if you go to my YouTube channel and you go to playlists. There is a photogrammetry playlist, and in here we cover reality capture and photo scan. So I'll go ahead and link you guys that. And it's actually been a while since I've been in reality capture, like a long time. So I'm not sure what the difference between those two are. I'd have to look it up. But if anybody's new to photogrammetry, you want to test it out, this is all just done with my, in fact, if we go to, let's do this, photogrammetry, yeah, right there. Girl statue, RC, cleaned up. Which one's the latest? 125 working? Let's look at this one. So here's me just walking around taking pictures. No vert color on that one. Let's go ahead and load up. Let's see if we can find a version. No. And this thing is still out in front of my house. We actually took it from the old house. Girl statue RC. Photogrammetry. Huh. I can't find any of that stuff. It's been a long time since I made that playlist. Let's go ahead and delete this up to light here. But yeah, you can check that out and do some. You take your phone and you can just walk around stuff. There's actually a lot of photogrammetry I need to do from vacations I've taken that I wanted to test the new functions and stuff. But cool. Thanks for all the nice words. Glad the tutorials and videos and stuff work out. I wish I could do more of them, but you know, life and work. How to project material to poly paint. How to show us project material to poly paint. You can, yeah, what we can, oops, where's my Wacom? There we go. Yeah, well, let's do that. Well, I think if I understand correctly, you want to project another mesh that has a poly paint and then project it to something and inherit that poly paint. That should just be using the projectile settings. And if we can go ahead and like let's get this body somewhat what we want so that we can take this in the Marvelous Designer. Actually, I guess that's about right. So we can actually do that, and I mean, not that we'd have anything particularly interesting to poly paint, but we could just color fill him and do some quick poly painting, and that would suffice, I think. So back to texture import, and let me see. Sorry, streaming, turtle power, bebop, reference, and we're just gonna grab. Where's he at? Where's he at? There he is. And I hope it's not this texture or anything that's causing it to be a little bit wonky. Okay, so again, perspective on, matching up his feet and his shoulder, and that's about right. And now his head is a little bit small. So we know he's generally proportional to what I'm looking for, and then his head is tiny. So we'll go ahead and fix that real quick. So I'm going to go ahead and center his head through here, and also you can hit Z, and we'll go ahead and move this out of the way with that little orange one here, so we can see that a little bit better. And we can, so we can turn this down and turn it up. So let's go ahead and move his, shoulders are a lot broader too, it looks like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into Move Multiple, click that on, Control-Shift-Tap to blur or take everything, and we're going to hold down Alt and move this over, and we're going to hit X to go across X symmetry because I think I turned that off, and we're going to kind of move these out a little bit. So we're going to make his shoulders a little bit broader, and then his head over here. This isn't separated. I'm going to make this a little bit easier, what I'm going to do is go to, oh, I guess his head is separated. Let's turn off, I guess it's a little bit hard to tell. That's fine. Now, all of the other stuff on his head, I can move separately, but since we lost our subdivision history anyways, I'm just going to go through here and temporarily, I'm going to hit Control W for all these just to make sure they're all in their own same poly group, and then I'm just going to merge these down temporarily. That'll make it so that, and also if I want to see where these are, I hold down Shift, and we're going to shoot those to the bottom. So that way, when I'm moving stuff, let's go ahead and get rid of the hands here. Split hidden. And before I split everything up, it might have been a good idea for me to, let's also take this hair. A good idea for me to, what was I saying? Sorry, it's still early. Before I moved all this stuff, it would have been a good idea for me to turn on X Symmetry, so I didn't have to go through here and return back on X Symmetry. But I guess it's easy enough to do. Just go through here and just tap X, and you're back where you started. But anyway, we're moving this head around. The necklace we're going to leave alone for now, because we might have to resize that. So we're going to put this kind of into place. I don't necessarily want to change his stance that much, although I guess we could hunch him over a little bit. So I'm still in Move Multiple, so I'm going to hunch him. Control tap so everything's back. I'm going to move his balance forward a little bit. We can change his feet as needed or his shoes as needed. But that'll be a little bit closer. Turn perspective back on. Go ahead and match him back up. And then now that he's generally in place, we're going to hit Z. We'll move this reference over, and this is about what I want to match, is his neck and his overall head size. And we'll go ahead and turn this just a little bit. Movie, timeline, show. There we go. So go to solo mode here. Let's turn off X Symmetry, go to Unmatched Mesh Center. We'll go ahead and reset this to the world, and then turn X Symmetry back on. And then we can go ahead and scale this up so that he matches a little bit closer. It might even be a little fatter this way, or longer I should say, and then definitely fatter this way. And then on his neck here, go ahead and bust that out a little bit more. And then on his hair, I understand this isn't the most thrilling thing in the world to watch, but, and then the ears, if we want to move those up, those are just a separate subtool, so we could just mask those out. And then move those forward. Let me check out his ears a little bit here. Let's go ahead and move these. And then his face here. And again, we're kind of just mushing stuff around. We can always go back through. We can always do a little bit of a cleanup pass. It also looks like he's a little more, he was drawn a little bit more orthographic. There's not a whole lot of perspective going on in this drawing, maybe. So you can actually go into the draw settings and change that focal length or anything like that, if it makes it a little bit easier. But so put this just into place here, and then these glasses. Let's go ahead and set a new key. So these glasses, we'll go ahead and do the same thing. Control Shift, mask, invert that mask. We'll go ahead and move these up and back. And then again, hit Z to go back into this mode, and you can turn this on and off and see what needs to be changed or what needs to be moved. And it is going to look pretty horrific when we go back to our change this guy, but that's okay. Again, we can always do cleanup work. I know those glasses are going to be fairly centered, so we can actually probably center the object on there. It's got like a little pinched head. All right, so I guess we matched that close enough. Let's go ahead and, again, set a new key. We can always snap back to it. And now we can go through and make all the fixes that we need to fix in order to make that kind of work a little bit better. Ooh, sorry about that. Alexander, hey, thanks for showing up. Yeah, we'll be doing, I think, yeah, CGMA starting, I think we're in week 0 right now. So make sure you hit those week 0 videos so you get the basics, you can navigate and you can sculpt and stuff like that. And then we can get rocking and rolling in week 1, which is, yeah, coming up, I think the first, I think we officially start on the 5th. So that should be fun. It's usually a fun class. It's always a fun class. Can you tell how the deformation band works? I changed the topology of the plane because it's more convenient to make a cylinder out of the plane, but the band works very strange. Deformation bend, so it'd be this one. So we got a plane 3D here, go into edit mode, make polymesh 3D, and then we hit W. Let's go ahead and make this a little bit thicker so we can see. And actually, let's go to geometry, and we'll go ahead and reconstruct geo, delete higher, just to simplify this out a little bit. QMesh, polygroup all, simplify this, I should say. Man, my brain's not working. And then we're going to go to, so there's bend curve and there's bend arc. So bend arc, I'm assuming, is what you're talking about as far as like bending this into a cylinder. And that should be about right. I'm trying to think if you can maybe set the pivot in a different area. No, it's always going to take the bounding box of your object. Yeah. Deformation bend. I changed the topology. Band. Oh. Make a cylinder out of the plane, but the band works very strange. I'm not sure what the deformation band is, unless you're talking about like bend arc or bend. There is the deformation deformer, but making a cylinder out of this would be interesting choice. Cool. Thanks for all the kind words, everybody. Yeah, so I had to turn on my monitor because I was doing some color corrective or some work that it was a little bit more. Usually what I do is I turn the brightness of my monitors down because I have 2 giant monitors here. But I had to turn it up because I'm doing a little bit more work that requires a little bit more accuracy in colors and stuff. And boy, it blows my eyeballs out. So I have these gunner glasses here that kind of dull the effect of having 2 giant light bulbs in front of my face. Bake material in polypaint in order to use a texture map. Oh, that. Yeah, I've never done that, but there is an Ask Zbrush on that. It's one of those techniques that's like, I just go into Painter and have fun. I don't have any real use for like trying to bake matte cap materials or anything in ZBrush, but I'm not saying that you can't or shouldn't, but matte cap baker, there it is. So there's a plugin for it that makes your life a lot easier. There's a manual ways to do it, but definitely check this out just for everybody else. You're able to go through and take like, apply matte caps and polypaints. Like polypaints, obviously, all you got to do is just go down here to your texture map, create, and then new from polypaint, or under your Z plugin, you can go down here to your multi-map exporter, and you can just bake off, quote unquote, your polypaint, even normal maps and stuff like that. So displacement, ambient occlusion, texture from polypaint, all that kind of stuff. So that's fairly straightforward. This isn't as straightforward as far as like getting your matte cap lighting baked into your object. So you can make it look more metal-y, and then you can see how you can kind of bake all of that. But yeah, and any sort of texturing and stuff I'm doing now would be physically based. So baking and lighting and stuff is kind of a big no-no. But if you're doing a little bit more stylized stuff, then that's probably a pretty cool thing. But yeah, I've never done it, So I'd be the last guy to walk you through that, but hopefully that helps. I didn't get a notification when I went live. I'll check that out. I'll check out my notifications. It should be working, although YouTube is it's a little bit interesting to navigate, to say the least. Check proportions right with Spotlight. Just hit Shift plus Z very quickly. Bad opacity close to, bring opacity close to 100. Yeah, that's another thing you can do. So if we go back here to our key, and then we hit Z, so you can crank this all the way up. And then to turn this off, you can do Shift Z and kind of flip it back and forward. Yeah, you know what? And I love myself a good Hawaiian pizza. I apologize to everybody where that's fighting words. Bend on the deformation tab. Main thing is it's possible. Thank you for showing me that other way. Yeah, you can. So yeah, you can bend. So yeah, okay, that's a good point. So on the deformation tab, so we have polyplane 3D here that we were playing with. There is underneath, instead of using this would be my go-to. It's just go in here and just use bend arc, and this gives you a lot more control over which ways you want to bend and stuff like that. But you can. A good point is to go over here into the bend over here. So if you wanted to bend in like the Y or the X direction, trying to see. Oh, I can't even get it to do what I needed to do. Soft bend X, Y, Z, and it should be centered on the world, I would imagine, but boy, that's doing some crazy stuff. Yeah, so in that case, yeah, use this deformer, and then I'll bend it out into a arc. Cool. Yes, that's another good point. You can go in here to Documents, and you can use Zap Link to go here, and you can store front, back, and you can also make a character sheet once you stored those. That's how I used to do it, but then for some reason it just I got good, and it was easier for me just to kind of use this movie thing and also get this movie thing out of the way. You can store this in your custom menu as well. You'll see I have a little show in here that gets rid of that pretty quickly. So okay, we're a little bit closer. So now let's take a look at his neck here, and we'll say, so now he's looking a lot more cartoony, which isn't a bad thing. I can live with that. So we'll go ahead and do some fixes real quick on him. Now at this point we could probably go ahead and start splitting this guy up. Now he's a little bit closer, so I'm going to take his glasses here, and we're going to go ahead and say split hidden. And then on his face, you could, if it is all just one polygroup, you can just go ahead and split these out. If by any chance you want to save the polygroup, so there's a lot of little things going on, just grab a little piece of it, Control-Shift-A, split hidden, and then you should be good to go. We'll go ahead and split this guy back up. Now, in the olden days, this would kind of also be a crashy proposition that we're doing here, is going through and splitting. Sometimes you'd split some stuff up, and then you would be sculpting on something and you'd want to snap back to its original pre-split form, and then it would kind of get in a bad state. I haven't had a problem with that in a while, in a few versions, so I think we're good. I think when we cleaned it out, of course I say that, and it's probably gonna go nuts. But yeah, I don't know if it's like, I don't know. I won't speculate. So we're gonna knock this brow back a little bit because his glasses and the reference kind of dictated that. And this actually looks like it needs to go back just a tiny bit too, and it's a little bit more flattened out. So again, once we make those drastic changes, and if you wanted to see me blocking something out that's similar to this, would be the Earthworm Gem on my YouTube channel. If you go back to my playlists here, gosh, I don't even know what playlist it would be. Type in Earthworm, or go to my ArtStation page. Speed sculpts, oof. You can see, and this is when we're using, I wouldn't necessarily use this technique, but you can use project primitive to go through and add muscles as well. I was kind of playing around as a new feature, so kind of playing around with that, but just kind of matching reference. And it's this whole Earthworm Gym from start to finish. If I go back to the source videos, I think it was like 4.25 hours to go ahead and just model this entire guy start to scratch, start to finish. But it's a real boring 4.5 hours matching reference. Not my favorite thing in the world to do, especially on a live stream. So Cool. Huh. Yeah, again, I'll check my notifications. I mean, I'd prefer people who want to be notified that they can show up at least. Um, let's see. Is it possible to make QMesh in 2 directions? Yeah. There should be. So we go over here to, well, if I understand correctly, you can take this polyplane here, and we have geometry here. Now, if you go through here, it kind of depends on your target. So if you go through here and you say QMesh polygroup all, it's only going to do this back polygroup. If you go through here and you say QMesh all polygons, it'll do all of them. So what I'll tend to do is if I want to go in 2 directions, I would want to make sure that like both of these are the same polygroup. So we can hit Control W, make them both the same polygroup here, and then we can say QMesh, polygroup all, and then you can QMesh in 2 directions. You could also turn on X symmetry. So if we turn on our floor plane here, you're going to see we might be symmetrical or kind of across the z-axis. So I mean, obviously, the easy one would be x-axis. You can go through here like QMesh a single poly, and now you're QMeshing across 2 directions. But also you can go in here to transform in QMesh in the z direction, and then we got single poly. And let's go ahead and say mirror and weld in the z direction. There we go. So now we're mirrored and welded. Now you don't have to do that. You can say local symmetry, and it should work. So that it'll move. It's like right now it's not on world symmetry, but you turn on LSym, that'll make the object's bounding box your own local symmetry. And then you can go through here and you can QMesh in 2 directions just with Z symmetry. Or you can do it with polygroups. So if you don't have symmetry turned on at all, if I hit X, you can hold down Alt and go through here and paint on both sides. Like so. And then now you can QMesh in 2 directions. If I understand correctly. Don't shoot any guns, even though I do live in Texas, so you could assume that pretty safely. Familiar with the bug in Zbrush where you work with an object and try to refocus on it? Sometimes it just can disappear from the viewport. It happens to be on small objects when I look at it from underneath. No, but I could totally see how that could happen if we were talking about this the other Tuesday as well. If you go down here to geometry size, if this number is way off from 2, a value of 2, Zbrush will behave very oddly. The most obvious thing would be like your draw size. If you went up to like 1,000 and it was this big on your screen, you can fix that by going into preferences, draw, and changing your dynamic brush scale or your max brush size. But a lot of other things in Zbrush are going to work weird. So generally what you do is you would go and work in your weird scale or a proxy of your weird scale in another program and then import it into Zbrush, and Zbrush will automatically fix what it needs to keep this XYZ size at around 2, and then change your export settings to some crazy number so that when you export back out, you're compatible. Oh, did we not grab both of these? Come on, Mike. Let's hit X. Squish those back into place here. You're playing it pretty fast and loose here. So yeah, that should maybe be a little bit more accurate. Because yeah, the Zbrush camera and stuff, especially on very small objects, especially if your Zbrush scale's out of whack. Now, that's not to say like, oh, you could fix that and it would fix everything. There's a chance that like working on very small scale objects in Zbrush would cause it to. This looks like we need to rotate these. So I'm going to rotate 1, and then I'm just going to do a quick mirror and weld across the X. LSym turned off, because again, when LSym's on, it's taking the bounding box of your actual object. So you want to be careful with that when you're going across world axes. But in this one, let's go ahead and go back to geometry and reconstruct. So we can reconstruct back down, and then we'll say delete higher, because again, I don't really remember why. Generally speaking, I don't go through and start adding real subdivisions. I'll do dynamic subdivisions unless I'm going towards final, and it seemed like a lot of stuff on here I was already going to actual subdivisions. So a little bit odd for me, but maybe I was demoing something, or I wanted to jump ahead a little bit because I felt like I was getting boring, which is most of the time. So now his arms feel kind of off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down Control And we're going to go in here to Mask Lasso and Control Tap to kind of blur that out, and then W. And I'm going to go down this axis. You can use, if you hit Y, you can go down an axis like this as well. And then you can move this into place. And that's another thing too, is you can actually use Transpose to go through, and it's kind of, I like using Transpose to move things around sometimes, especially like body parts, because you can kind of get a visual of the bone here. You can also go out of Y, and this will inherit the transpose line property. So where I really find this handy is if I go back to like that plane 3D we were playing with, and I want to set my gizmo to an exact, like I want to go from here to here. It's kind of hard to kind of line this up. Now this one would be like a 45-degree angle, so maybe not so hard, but it's also really easy to go into Y and then just snap from vert to vert, and you can see the transpose line snaps to the object, and then hit Y, and now your gizmo will inherit that exact you know what I'm trying to say. Do I have to use all the words this morning? It's too early. Cool. Oh yeah, and if you need to see something, like if you are working with a plane 3D, okay, yeah, if that's what you're referring to as far as like things disappearing when you get on small objects, you can see how it kind of disappears here. Go down here to display properties, and then turn on double. Now you can see both sides. Now be careful with that. If you leave that on and things get flipped, ZBrush can also start acting weird. You start inflating and it starts deflating, then you need to go down here to display properties, turn off double, and then flip your normals. Polygroup mask plugin is awesome. They need to start using it to ZRemesh. They showed at the summit. Yeah, I'll have to. I took some notes, some very, very quick notes on the new ZBrush features. We'll see what comes out of that, hopefully soon. Camera's looking at it from the bottom. Object itself is closed. Huh. It might just be a clipping issue. So in Maya, for example, you have a near and a far clipping plane, and you can change those. So when like sometimes you'll be in Maya, you'll be modeling, and then you'll zoom in on something, and all of a sudden things will start disappearing. To go into your hit Control A to go into your attributes, and then with your camera selected, and then you can go and change that near clipping plane to like, it might be set to like 1 or 0.1. You can change it to 0.01 or 0.001. That'll change that clipping plane. Same thing with the far clipping plane. And ZBrush kind of has that built in. I don't think they have any real control over like clipping planes. And in fact, I don't know that you can even go inside of an object in ZBrush. Like in Maya, you can like have an object and go inside of it and look at the back faces and stuff. In ZBrush, I don't know that you have that functionality. And if I miss anything, I'm sorry. I'm scrolling faster now. ZBrush's latest development features aren't as game-changing as the previous years. I mean, if I could, I'm sure every company would love to be a game changer every year. So I'd say ZBrush's track record's pretty good. But I mean, it kind of depends on what you use and how you use it. Mike didn't work for me. Inset proportionally holding control during inset application. So when you were talking about like if you wanted to do, if I understand correctly, BI brush insert, and we want to grab, say, and actually there's some of this stuff we do need to do. So you're saying like hold down control as you inset. If you hold down control and then drag, it'll mask, but if you start dragging and then hold down control, it should snap back to your brush size. Oh, inset proportionally. Sorry, not insert proportionally. So inset proportionally would be, if we go back to our plane here, and let's scale this out a little bit. Okay, so we need to go through here, and we want to do an inset single poly. We go through here, and we hold down control. If you hold down shift, it'll snap to a square. If you don't hold down anything, in this case, it should be fairly, although you can see it's starting to lose proportion. It's fatter and thinner over here. So when you start scaling in, hold down control, and then it'll be perfectly proportional. Your mileage may vary a little bit on that, on let's say inset region. Yeah, I mean, on square objects it should be pretty close. On other objects, it may not work as well. But cool, thanks for the kind words. Hey Yoda, thanks for showing up. Any time to play games in your spare time at all? Still stay on that. Or movies. You know what? You hit me with the 1-2 punch. Two things that, boy, I just, it's hard for me. Not that I don't love them. It's just really hard for me to justify. Like, really hard for me to justify. Because, like, if I have any free time, I always feel like I need to be getting better at something or catching up on projects that I'm behind on, freelance stuff or otherwise. It gets more and more difficult for me to be like, well, I'm gonna play this week. I'm gonna play, you know, get into a game and stuff and have fun. Honestly, I want to say the last game I got really played a lot of was Warcraft and Fallout 3. Since then, on the game side, not so much. On the movie side, what's the last movie I saw in the theater? I don't remember. I do have a huge TV in the media room now, so I maybe be able to catch up. And honestly, we watch more TV like Mindhunter. Any David Fincher TV show, I'm totally on board with. So we got the elbow matched up here. I think that'll work a little bit better. We'll go ahead and move these hands into place and see if that's not um, too off. But yeah, mostly now it's just like TV shows, and kind of those sprawling Game of Thrones types. Although the tentpole TV shows like Stranger Things and Game of Thrones and stuff, I'm more likely to catch. I must have seen I probably saw I saw the last Avengers. I didn't see the last Spider-Man. There's a lot of movies I need to catch up on. So one day I'll go through. I'm just fixing these. It's kind of bugging me. These shoulders, because he does have some fairly broad shoulders, but then his arms start looking a little bit. Okay, and then just to make sure, let's go ahead and hit, let's go mirror and weld, X symmetry here, and we'll go ahead and scale these up. We have LSIM turned on. And for some reason, this is a legacy thing too. I had local in here. I think they've finally gotten rid of local out of there, since most people don't need to really touch that. But boy, now he's got like crazy arms on here. So let's test those one more time. So we've got the shoulder here. Let's go ahead and turn this up here. Yeah, these might be a little bit long. Actually, we can just pull these back a little bit. Playing it fast and loose with these proportions. That's okay. So just like we did before, I'm going to, and these are just block out phase anyway. So we can go ahead and I'm going to hold down Alt and Shift and push all these to the bottom here. I'm not going to bother doing like a move multiple. I'm just going to throw all these into the same subtool temporarily. And again, you can always split them back out. Let's go a little big. Because yeah, when I'm looking at him, I don't see like monster hands or anything. So I'll kind of watch that. All right. And then also he's a little bit thicker in the legs here and in the middle. So we can kind of match his pants, although that could be misleading. Let's match his body. And his vest we haven't even started yet, so we'll kind of thicken him up just a tad, left and right. Yeah, and stuff like this, rarely would I ever reconstruct back down. to nothing, just delete higher, and then I would have dynamic subdivisions on for something like this. We'll go ahead and just throw a crease tolerance on there. Boy, that did something weird, didn't it? Let's do a group by normals. Let's get rid of this inside one here, delete hidden, and we'll just Q-mesh this out if it's going to be all weird and stuff. It does look like something strange is going on. Okay, so I'll say he's a little bit closer. Go ahead and push his head parts back in. And then his mouth, and then around his mouth here, this seems to be a little bit thicker. He's got a little bit more down here. And his lip, it's pretty intense up front. Let's go ahead and change that. And his tusks aren't that thick. Now this is the thing too, is like if I was going to go through and be like, okay, I'm just going to go through and sculpt the hell out of this guy, and I wasn't streaming and boring the hell out of you guys, I would probably put on, like, I don't know, forensics files or listen to an audible book. Something where I don't necessarily need to pay attention to it, but background noise to keep me from going insane. But again, I don't get to do that very often anymore. Where I actually get to sculpt anything anymore. Doesn't really happen too much. All right. Cool. Let's see. Oops, sorry. I'm a little bit behind here. What means for you bad design and good design of weapons and creatures? What features you pay more attention to creation process? I haven't put up any Halloween. Sorry, I'll get back to that. I saw the Halloween directions, so that we have on the Halloween decorations. There's one house that has the projector that projects onto like a sheet, and it has like the hands kind of touching it and then ghosts floating in and out. And I was like, I bet you could do some really cool, creepy 3D stuff, and you could make that and render it out pretty easily. So I maybe have another project that I want to kind of do is get back into the animation side of things and the rendering side of things, and see if we can't just like make some creepy like spider human creatures or something that we could go through and quickly animate and render, because it doesn't have to be pristine animation. It's behind you're projecting it to the back of a sheet or something like that. So you could do some really fun, cool stuff with that very, very quickly. So maybe that'll be something we can do this month. Maybe. I'd have to go and kind of brush up on my animation skills a little bit. That's not impossible. But yeah, as far as good design and bad design, that's just doing a deep dive on, I mean, there's design principles like form, shape, balance, proportion, and all that good stuff. That's all really good to know, composition. And then just as far as weapons and creature design in particular, creature design would be like a lot of animal anatomy and animal study and animal functionality, so that when you're messaging to the user, it's kind of the basics of the fundamentals of like character design type stuff, where it'd be like, what are you messaging to the user? What archetypes are you pulling from? What are you trying to convey visually, message visually to your target audience quickly and effectively? That's good design, is kind of storytelling, and then what Mike Hill would call it, embedding information into your design. Yeah, Alex got some good feedback here. Thank you, Alex. Game industry remove person after 5 years experience. You shouldn't be removed after 5 years. Go watch Joker. Waste 3 hours on it. Believe me, there's been some really, really good movies that have come out, and it's always been like, yeah, we'll go watch it this weekend, and boy, it never happens. Any tutorials on Zbrush to go over Slay? Actually, I have a little bit slower, thousands of times, but sometimes it'd be a little hard to follow. I don't have any ZBrush for sale that can go slower, but I guarantee you everybody else but me probably they go painfully slow. I there are some tutorials I've watched where 2x speed isn't fast enough, but I don't. I just talk how I talk. However, you can go on YouTube. You can do, I think it's Shift, comma key, and you can slow it down, or go to the little gear icon and you can slow it down. Of course, that makes me sound a little bit weird, but the Polygroup plugin. Oh, Polygroup it. Yeah. In fact, if you guys aren't familiar, that's one of the new features that was in Polygroup it surface. I think this one, hard surface. Yeah, using the Polypaint plugin in conjunction with Zero Mesh for sure. You could do that. And that's just a cool, easy way to do that. And with me too, as far as like spare time and doing video games, or even just sitting down and doing work, which is probably more likely to happen, is that man, sometimes it's hard to. I think getting in the habit of going through and turning on your computer. If it was just something like drawing or something, then that's a little bit lower barrier to entry, as odd as it may sound. But actually going through and like turning on the computer, setting down, turning on your programs, and actually all of those things can make it kind of difficult to follow through. So, all right, let's take this strap. I'm going to take these edges here, invert that, and we'll just pull those a little bit further. And if you don't, you can also simplify this stuff too. We can go in here and we can say insert single edge, pull down Alt. And also, if you want to smooth these out, instead of going through here and trying to be like, let me slowly pull these things around, you do have polygroups on all sides of these. If you don't, just go in your polygroup menu and do groups by normals. Then you always have your polish by features. A feature is a polygroup, so you can go through here and you can just tap polish by features, and that'll go ahead and smooth that out for you. If you really want to smooth them out, open circle, polish by features. But if you want to maintain your volumes a little bit better, just go through there and drag those sliders. I'll kind of even that geometry back out after you've mangled it, like I tend to do. Just an easy way to kind of smooth that geometry back out. Okay, so we got a pantless bebop, and again, we're just sorry about the boringness of all this, but we're just checking proportions. Again, like they were saying in the comments, you want to make sure all your forms are right before you move too far in any direction. And I'm also kind of debating whether I want to move his head forward, because that's another thing too. So if we do want to do that, let's turn on move multiple, and then we'll go ahead and hash everything out, and then grab all of his head parts and kind of move his head forward just a bit. I think that now that we've made his head larger, God, that looks like a gigantic head. Am I crazy? Am I nuts? Am I just losing my mind? 'Cause damn. Okay, so we got feet, shoulders, head. I mean, that's about right. Let's match his heels up with his shoulders. God, no, that's damn close. Looks like a bobblehead. Okay, well, we'll go with that. Okay, so we got this. We got his head. Got his ears. We got his glasses. Glasses I'm going to set down just, oops, turn off move multiple. We're going to settle those in just a little bit here. Now the eyes we may never see, but it's nice to kind of go ahead and start at least having some semblance of, let's go into smooth stronger here. Let's go into trim dynamic. And we'll go into clay brush here. Now we can start integrating some of these features. So while I'm going through and doing a little pass on here, do we not catch those ears? And also looking at the reference here, I'm trying to look at like relative distances are also good to look at too. So it's like the distance between his mohawk and his ear is a little bit telling. You know, right here we have an awful lot of space. So this is going to be something where we can maybe thicken this out just a bit, but also possibly go through here and kind of thin this out, maybe pull these ears in just a tad. And then once you've mangled it around, just take a step back and look at it a little bit more holistically and see if there's any obvious adjustments you need to make so that it's not so bizarre. Yeah, I would say he's blocked in closer now. Cool. Take it easy, Francisco. Websites for freelance ZBrush artists. Oh, that's a good one. Freelance work. I mean, ArtStation has available for freelance type stuff, but you gotta kind of, I guess, be visible on there. Yeah, sketch to concept is it's kind of the same thing as going from like a drawing to your concept, and that's kind of what we've done over this series. So if you go back through my live streams, you'll see us start from nothing. I think I don't remember if you start with a base body or anything. So I think we start pretty basic. Tippett Studio presentation summit this year. I haven't watched any of them. I watched a very quickly Joseph Drust's and Solomon's walkthrough on the new features, but I haven't actually gone through. But yeah, awesome. I'll have to check that out. That sounds good. I watch all of them. It's just timing. And yeah, management's kind of taking a chunk out of my stuff, but hopefully someday soon I'll be able to get back into it. What I focus on at work is mostly PowerPoint presentations. Speaking of, I may need to. We hopped in 10 minutes early. I may need to leave a little bit early just because I do need to wrap up something that I've been. It's like pulling teeth though. Like some presentations, it's basically. My responsibilities are now team focused and studio focused as opposed to individual asset or project focused. So it's not a bad thing. It actually allows me a lot of not influence, but it allows me to be a little bit more useful, a little more broadly, which is never a bad thing. But then again, I lose personally the ability to affect individual things, so I don't get to do any individual artwork or anything like that. Although I still can, as far as like if I wanted to go through and be like set up a process or set the bar on something. But my team is really good. It's like they're the ones. I mean, which to not a bad problem to have. They set the bar, so they don't need me to. They're more knowledgeable than me on almost everything. So, and again, that's a good position to be in. I'm not complaining about that. Having a good team is never a bad thing. In fact, if we want to let's take a quick look through. You can check these out. Let me see on ArtStation. Don't want to leave anybody out, but of course my brain isn't firing on all cylinders. So Eric Kangas is one of our character artists, Certain Affinity. He's really good. Dane Peterson is another really good one. And again, it's almost weird because like what they're working on now and what's on their ArtStation are completely different. They're actually not doing a whole lot of. I would love to have a project right now where they're doing more of this stuff, but at the moment, not so much. Christian Gallego, really good. Juan Mesa, really good. All these guys are nuts, man. They do such good work. Othon, I don't remember how to spell his last name. I knew I was gonna miss one. I can look that up really quick, but everybody's really killing it. Roger Perez is another really good one. They're all so good, and even their ArtStation portfolios, like what they work on at work, is nuts. But oh, good, it's making me log back in. Security first, everybody. Sorry. Tejeda. There we go. And Othon. Yeah, like I said, and he's doing weapons right now too, which it's good to have that in the wheelhouse. And then also Sam Burton, another weapons type guy. Let's see, Sam Burton, is he on here? Yeah, this is his stuff. another hard surface specialist. A little bit of creature stuff, a little bit of character design too, but yeah, all really, really good guys. Can you save different poses in ZBrush to in a timeline to check articulations for action figures? You can, yes, you can animate. There was a, yes, you can. I think you might have to do it through the layers system. So you would basically go through and animate layers, and then in your geometry, I'm sorry, your layers system, you can go through. There's an old video, ZBrush, I think it was Earthquake or something. Oh boy, that's probably not going to be able to find it. So yeah, you can test some functionality in ZBrush. You can also, if it's something simple like this and it's low res enough, you can actually go into Transpose Master. In fact, do I have videos on this? Yeah, I think I do. I can't remember if it's in my if it's underneath my intro to the ZBrush for ideation type stuff, or if I even cover it. I know I go over Z-sphere posing on my YouTube channel, but as far as like, you can Z-sphere pose, and you can also save those Z-sphere poses to layers in Transpose Master. So when you go to Z plugin Transpose Master, you can go in there and you can do Transpose Mesh with a Z-sphere rig. You can actually store and paste rigs. So if you have a rig already set up, you can just paste it into your Z-sphere rig in your Transpose Master mesh. You don't have to recreate it. You bind your mesh, and then you can pose it out. And then when you pose it, you can save layers for those poses. So you can, and then you can animate those on your timeline. So you can set keys on there. It's interesting. I can't say I do that a lot in ZBrush. Most of my functionality testing is outside of ZBrush, but functionality testing in ZBrush would be a good. That's something I brought up at ZBrush Summit 2018 during my presentation. Was the ability to do that would be really nice. That's a good point, John. Yeah, keep your computer on, because otherwise that buried entry to sit down in front of your computer and get work done a little bit less. Yeah, exactly. And in the picture, that's what I was trying to match my camera to as well. The picture, as you can see here, you're absolutely right. He is kind of leaning forward a little bit, and he's kind of hunched over a little bit. So while doing this, yeah, you'd want to make sure that you weren't like snap straight up, and you're like, why doesn't it match? You want to tilt that camera down to kind of match as well, and maybe even match the pose. Because again, I don't want to pose him, but also you're right. If they did, and I'm trying to see if, like, okay, so if he is closer to the camera, were they actually going through and going, his feet's going to be smaller, his head's going to be bigger, because his hands are kind of small, and they're closer to the camera. Not that they're small, they're normal, but I could, and that could be, and I think when we did, you know what, now that I think about this, I think when we did originally do this, I did go through and I did say, you know what, his head's way too big. And I think we did end up just going, let's scale this down. So I'm going to do that again, but I'm just going to do it maybe a little bit less. We'll keep it maybe that size. That makes me a little more comfortable. Because you're right, if he is leaning towards the camera, his head's going to get bigger. And if I match that and my perspective turned on isn't matching that focal angle or that focal length, then it's not going to match up. I'm going to have a big bobblehead. Cool. Thank you for the kind words. Glad the videos are working out for you. Yes, meetings and all that good stuff. Usually the streaming dates are Tuesday on Pixelogic's channel. If you wanted to ever see that kind of stuff, if you go to here's mine in particular, but ZBrush Live will have everybody's, and Pixelogic's YouTube channel will have everybody's, but here's my workshop, ZBrush workshop stuff for them. Usually lately, if you go back to the older ones, those are just ZBrush exclusive. Now I record them while I do that and throw them on my YouTube channel too, so you're not missing anything. But sorry, just getting caught up. If I miss anything, I apologize. Keyboard I have is an ASIO backlit. I wonder if I can hold this up. Can you see this in front of my face? This thing, KB506 keyboard. For my old eyes. Yeah, and yeah, you should be able to post links here, I think. Cool. Oh, perfect. Thank you, Dr. Depresso. cool. And yeah, I'll check out the Joker. That's another one that looked interesting take to me, especially after you know. And that's another thing. As another one I didn't watch, which I guess nobody would fault me for, was the Suicide Squad. But a lot of different takes over there in WB side, DC side. I think I watched most of the Marvel movies. I missed a bunch of. I never saw it. I don't think I saw a lot of the Spider-Man ones, or I might have missed a Thor one here or there. But I think I saw most of them, if that's any consolation. Cool. All right, so we got this here, and I'm going to go say, let's go ahead and knock this back down, and we've got a reference up here. So let's kind of burn through a little bit of anatomy here. We'll start refining this enough. I think we've got them blocked in enough. So again, you want to make some forward momentum here. So we're going to take this here, we're going to go ahead and hide it, and we're going to take these here, we're going to go ahead and turn those off. And my organization is usually, if it's only this many subtools, I don't usually tend to organize too much because I can always just go through here and Alt-Tab and then turn things off as needed. And you know what, let's turn his pants back on, let's turn everything back on, sorry. And make sure that now these pants we're going to be replacing with like Marvelous Designer pants in the near future, maybe today. But for now, we'll go ahead and just keep these here. And then these chains, we don't want to, we could go through and manually move these links one by one, but a big brush, shoot, forgot. Let's redo. Let's go mirror and weld. Turn on X symmetry. Yeah, it looks like I clipped a little bit of geo. So if that ever happens, go into solo mode here. You might have a little extra piece of geo in here when you do a mirror and weld. Just go ahead and delete hidden on that. There we go. And it also looks like when I undid, some of those move multiples may have shifted as well, but that's all right. So again, we're going to go through here and we're going to take these off and we'll do some anatomy sculpting. Again, I'm just kind of looking here, and it looks like, you know, as he's moving forward, he doesn't have us, and I'm trying to find other pictures of him. He's kind of all over the place. These are pretty close. So he doesn't have washboard abs, but he's not chubby. So we might be able to dial that back just a little bit. And then he has some definition in his chest here. So we got Smooth Stronger turned on. And we may be working at a slightly higher resolution than I'm comfortable with. So Dynamesh, let's see, 360. That's fine. So again, we have his, you know, basic anatomy here, and I've got my Ecorche model over to the side, keep me honest. But we have his basic rib cage here, and that's where his what my wife would call her superior lattices, but your serratus anterior, and then your lats here. Getting clothing up inside of his arms might be a little bit of a task here. It might be this is general A pose, but since he's got a lot going on in his body, it might be a little bit easier to go through and let's go ahead and move this guy around. A little bit easier to kind of move his arms out just a little bit more. But to do that, let's do his hands first a little bit. So for hands, might be easier just to work on one hand at a time, just to get rid of that other side, or you could also array mesh this over. But this is not Dynamesh, but we can go ahead and Dynamesh this. Let's go crank this up to like maybe, ooh, that's too low. 552, there we go. And then now we can kind of start working on the hands. So on the hands in particular, you're going to want to say err on the side of a little bit flatter on the top. And we've got knuckles here. I'm trying to see if I have any good hands up on my screen. Not really. Get some reference. But for instance, we can go through here, and he's got, I don't know how cartoony his hands are. He's actually got fairly human hands here. So we're going to go through, and we can kind of start dialing in some more basic anatomy. So again, flat knuckles on the top, and I'm going to extend these out just a little bit. These are a little bit truncated. Oops, turn off move multiple. So we've got, again, and again, this is another thing too where you could just bring in reference and just match it. That's easy enough, just like we were doing with our cartoon. And and then the thumb here. So on the side, we have the knuckles, and again flat on the top, and then on the nails here, let's go ahead and go up a little bit in our resolution. In our Damien standard, the nails are going to follow, I guess he's got regular nails. The nails are going to follow the curve of that hand, and then they're going to go back through here. And this, dialing in the nails, you can also make the nails a different shape or a different subtool at the end if you wanted to do like very particular rendering. But for now, just kind of dialing in your proportions. If you go ahead and put that nail in, it might be more obvious, like, oh, this is kind of a busted nail, or at least busted proportion. So for instance, over here, you can see we can kind of work on the meat of this hand here. And in this palm. And you can see we can be flatter on the top here. If you want to exaggerate that a little bit, you can take your H-polish brush, your trim dynamic brush, and you can kind of go through here and you can kind of flatten this out a little bit. And then we'll go in here with our Damien standard brush, and we'll just make sure that and these proportions, yeah, are a little bit wonky. So we'll go through here with our move brush, and we generally want to go, I guess those are about the same. Now from the top, you're going to have your webbing is going to be a little bit more forward from the palm side, and then from the top side, you're going to see the knuckles are a little bit further back. So we got this. And then underneath, these phalanges are going to be about the same size, and they get smaller as they go forward. So yeah, these are a bit off here. Got some real Tony Soprano fingers here. And I can't get my wife to watch Sopranos. I think we watched the first episode and she just wasn't into it. We did watch Breaking Bad. I guess there's a movie coming out. That might be interesting to check out. Okay, a little bit closer. And then on the thumb side here, we've got that meat of the thumb, and then it goes out here, and then this, like really, this would be where our first knuckle would be. And then this would be, gives a little bit more leeway here. And then from the top here, so now this is going to come out a little bit more here. And then it's going to be this angle. And boy, this didn't seem to come forward at all. And you can go hold down Control Alt, and that'll unmask this. And then you can just take your either your move brush or your gizmo. That'll make that a little bit easier. And I'm actually going to bend this a little bit as well. Go ahead and set that bone, put it inside, and then use your camera-based and re-Dynamesh. And again, we're keeping this fast and loose, and then you can get this as detailed as you want to, but at the end of the day, there we go. You're going to end up merging this back with the body, unless you have a reason to keep it separate, which you might. And then here on the hands, we'll go ahead and fatten that up a little bit, and then Damien standard this back. Pop this out, pop this out a little bit more. There we go. A little bit better hands, and he does have 1, 2, 3, 4. That's right. I want to make sure the number of fingers you're making is accurate. In this case, it is. Okay. And then the body here. Go ahead and push these wrists back. those a little bit closer. I'm going to hold down Shift. That's already at the top. I'm going to take these hands, move it to the top, move them underneath, and then at this point we can go ahead and just merge these down and Dynamesh these together. And probably even the same thing with the head, although sometimes it's nicer to work with the head. Oh yeah, it looks like these got shifted. That gets a little bit buggy sometimes too, is when you're doing move multiple and you undo back through. Sometimes it'll forget. All right, save often. All right, 710. Maybe we'll go into Marvelous Designer if this base body's close enough. Let's do a little bit of a fix on his traps here since we moved his head forward. And he does have a fairly fat neck. It kind of goes into his body here, so that's, I'd say that's about accurate. And then on his back here, let's turn off, let's go ahead and hold down Shift, turn everything off, and then we'll go through and turn his head on. And any other relevant, you know, it might be easier. Turn everything back on. And the things that I want to show, like his body's already at the top, his head's at the top, maybe grab his ears as well, because I just want to see these. Now this is where you might be saying, well, why not put all these things in a folder? And I wouldn't have a real good argument for you. These things we can go ahead and delete, honestly. And these wrists have moved, so we can go through here and we can kind of reposition these. And we may need to thicken those up a little bit as well. And again, most of the stuff's in blockout mode, so it's not insurmountable task to go through and make any changes or actually just remodel them from scratch. You guys have seen how easy it's been just to kind of make the stuff. So if it only takes you a couple minutes, you know, start from scratch if you need to. Nothing wrong with that. And then this bandolier stuff we can get rid of. This one we do need. This one we don't really need. We don't need that nano mesh anymore. And then these things we can kind of all right. So we've got his neck here, and on the back of the skull is kind of where these would end up. Let's go ahead, you know, it's good enough. So we're going to take this body here, and at this moment we are going to merge everything together and redynamesh. So now we can go through here and make sure that, not that you couldn't do this on a separate subtool, but you know, let's just do it here. So we've got the back of the neck. And this is another thing too, where it's always like, you know what, if I'm going to have some extra time, I should be watching anatomy videos and practicing anatomy. There's always something, man. Although I guess you could go crazy always being on the ball. I'm not saying I am always on the ball. It's quite the opposite, actually, but I could always be better. So we got the shoulders here. So we can clean this up a little bit, I think. So just making sure we're staying honest here with our proportions and our anatomy and stuff. We can go through here and kind of start indicating collarbone. So that's going to go through here. And you wouldn't have all this, and you wouldn't have all this, because this would be kind of that neck and the sternomastoid to be going down here. But of course, he's got quite a bit going on there. So now this is where getting maybe some super fat guy reference might be worthwhile. Around the neck area and stuff. Not that he's not super fat all over, but some of them is a bit chunky. And then on the back here, whoops, get these earphones out of the way. And this is the other good thing too about working in symmetry and mirrored, so that when I'm looking at any reference, I can work on one side and the other side will pick up that information. So on the back here, we do have our scapula little ridge here. And this is going to go down here. And then this is where our traps are going to kind of fall in. Your C7 is going to be somewhere in here. The base, kind of above the rib cage here, maybe a little bit higher. And then through here, let's go ahead and crank up our Z intensity here. We'll turn up our lazy radius and hit L to turn it back down. And then we can go through here and we can kind of start building this up. And again, we're just kind of blocking out the volumes more than anything and making sure that. And again, he doesn't have like, I mean, I guess he is kind of got a bodybuilder upper body. It's kind of, he's got an interesting body type. And then, yeah, I guess stick to the back here. So we have down the middle of his back is where your spine's going to go. And if you ever need to, you can go through here with your pinch brush. You can pinch that in. When you're digging it in, you can go through and smooth that out. You're going to have like this, bodybuilders have like a little Christmas tree back here. Your spinal erectors, I guess, those would be. And then your lats back through here. Your lats are actually pretty thin. And then your, like we were saying, your serratus anterior along this side here. And then your obliques are going to tuck up into those. So your serratus anterior is going to be back here. And that's actually going to, your serratus anterior is interesting because it goes from your rib cage all the way back to the back inside of your scapula here. It's kind of cool. And then inside of your scapula, you've got your, boy, it's been a while. I used to know all this stuff. It hasn't even been that long, and you lose it. There's an inferior, there's one that goes through here, and it goes and attaches on the other inside of your humerus, and it actually goes, your tricep is actually going to go up in here, and then this is going to go in between the tricep heads. But boy, I don't even remember what it is anymore. It all goes. Got to stay on top of it, man. You will lose it if you don't use it. Okay, yeah, so then we got the traps going through here. Now, while we're blocking these in, this is more for just kind of volumes and keeping myself honest. But of course, when we're at the end of the day and we've blocked in everything, this is when we'd probably go through and just smooth everything out. Because again, he's not like a shredded bodybuilder. He's just kind of a vaguely muscular body type. And then through here, we are going to have, on the chest, you've got these striations that go from the, and really, this is actually incorrect-ish. So we have the clavicle here, and then you're going to have these that are going to attach from the clavicle portion, and it goes on the inside of the humerus and wraps around, and then down on your rib cage, your sternum, and then also on your rib cage up. And then this is where the deltoid kind of takes over, and you have like maybe a little bit of a cavity in there. And then your clavicle here. And again, always working in the round. Something like that. And again, if you were going for like maybe a more of a Bruce Lee look, that's where you could go in here and you could start building in some like crazy striations where these things are gonna kind of overlap, and then you go in here with your clay brush. That was Damien's standard, but you can use your standard brush too. You can kind of go through here and start building up these striations, and then go into the smooth brush. Smooth Stronger is on, so I'm going to turn that down a little bit, and then you can go through here and just kind of knock that back a little bit, and you get a little bit of striations, and you can turn on different materials, or probably even better is go into like basic material, and then go into your lights here and kind of go and test, check out your model under different lighting situations. And this is good for like creature anatomy, but also as well as creature anatomy, and kind of you can get away with kind of doing a little bit of, like, if you really wanted to go nuts on like alien anatomy and stuff like that, you could really go through here and you could pop out certain things and then go through and kind of overlap some of these shapes here. Again, it's just kind of digging through. If you wanted to have like stringy flesh or pulled flesh over over a surface or something like that. Same kind of deal. And then you can go through here and just kind of smooth it out. Watching Jordu Shell sculpt with wet clay, like little maquettes and stuff. It's really fun. It's an older video, FX magazine video that I have stashed somewhere. But it's kind of the same deal. Interestingly enough, is just kind of go through and pop in your big reeds, and then go through and just kind of take a brush and kind of smooth it in. You know, and kind of make it look, what would that be? Subcutaneous, under the skin. Yeah, so again, sorry if I'm a little bit behind here. I'm not sure if you can post how locked down my restream chat is. Substance Designer versus Marvelous Designer. I wouldn't really say versus. I would use Substance Designer in conjunction with Marvelous Designer. Use them both. Any new content added to the CGMA ideation course? Not until something new comes out. There's a few videos I do want to update. You know what? Maybe I'll get around to that this week. But not very many. Nothing major. Make a Halloween pumpkin. Oh yeah, we can do that real quick actually. So we can do, there's a couple different ways you can do a Halloween pumpkin. We can go in here, this will be good for thumbnail as well. So we can go through here and make a Polymesh 3D. And you know what, just to keep myself, again, always looking to keep myself honest. Let's look up Jank-O-Lanterns. Because again, I know stuff, but I don't necessarily have all this stuff in my brain. So we'll say maybe take something like this. So we could, you know what, that's good. This will be fun. So we'll kind of do a squashy one, and then we can do a stretchy one. So the basic overall forms, you could like go in and box model this thing, but it's funner, honestly, for me. Let's go ahead and unify this. Alright, it is. Let's scale it down just a little bit and Dynamesh this. So just very quickly, and also another thing we can do, turn on X Symmetry, go into Z plugin, and not Z plugin, go into transform, and then go down here and let's turn on our Y radial symmetry, and we'll say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Let's say radial count of 12. So now when we go through here, we can hold down Alt and we can kind of push through. And then as we go down the pumpkin here, it'll automatically kind of go through. And then we can kind of, now you probably want to be a little bit more careful than me. Now, this is the thing too, if you did want to do a very precise pumpkin, or if you wanted to do like a mechanical pumpkin, and you wanted to like, or even like a basketball style thing, actually, we should be getting the basketballs on the ArtStation. I'm trying to remember where we had the basketballs at, if they wanted to include those videos. In their ArtStation videos, we do go over that, kind of similar. But we actually go through and box model that with ZModeler. But this would be a good start for our pumpkin, and then you can go through here and kind of like, you know, have a little bit of fun with, you can even go through and like twist this around or bulge it out or whatever you want. So once we have this, let's go ahead and go in here and we'll insert a cylinder here. Let's go ahead and turn off X Symmetry for this one, and we'll go ahead and say split mass points. And then this one, you know what, let's go ahead and just hit shift to Dynamesh, because I think it'll be easy enough just to kind of go through. And you know what might even be funner? Well, it kind of depends on what you want to make. We can go through here and we can use like a bend curve, and we can change that direction. Oops. There we go. And then we can kind of use this to kind of go through and kind of munge that up a little bit, and then go through here and kind of settle that back in. So that'll be a good start for our stem here. So now going back through here, let's go ahead and crank that resolution up just a little bit. And I'm going to go through here. We're going to turn on X Symmetry back again, and we're going to go through and we're going to pinch these a little bit. And then we're going to go through with our clay brush. You could use clay brush or inflate probably for this. And we'll go ahead and then just increase that contrast between those dug in lines and our other lines. We'll go through and do another pinch here. Something like that. And then we can go through with our stem, and we're going to go through with our trim dynamic and kind of trim these volumes down a little bit. And that'll kind of just start making this look a little bit more. Number one, we're finding the forms or the planes of that stem that we want. It doesn't necessarily mean they have to be this flat, but it's kind of good to find the different directions that that volume is going to go in. And then you can go through here with your Damien standard. Let's go ahead and raise that resolution up just a little bit too. You can go through and now you can start kind of indicating where these, what do they call them, little stem striations are going to end up going. And then we can go in here with our standard brush. I guess our Z intensity is fine. Let's turn on our lazy radius. Hit L, and then under stroke, if you need to change that lazy, the lazy radius, that's where you'd find that. And then just go through here and kind of, again, bump these out. Same thing we did for the pumpkin. You can go through here and you can pinch. Might be kind of tighten these up a little bit, and then you go back in with your trim dynamic or your H polish if you wanted to changing that, and then go back through with your smooth brush. If you want to do an overall smooth, since I only have one poly group, a polish by features would probably work fine. Okay, so now, how do we do a face? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Subtool, Insert, we'll grab a Polymesh 3D, and we're going to take this Polymesh 3D and we're going to scale it down, and we're going to say you, Polymesh 3D, are going to be subtractive. And then now we're going to go through here, let's do BTO, and we're going to go, actually let's keep this normal for now. So we're going to put a face on here, and we want to carve it in, but I want to do it, I want to make a shell out of this thing. You can do a shell with Dynamesh. You can also do a shell with ZRemesher and then Boolean it in. So I think that's what we're going to end up doing. But we'll turn on X Symmetry. There we go. So here's the front of our face here. So let's see if we get any cool, I guess we'll just keep this one. It's good enough. We'll go through here and we'll say put in some mean eyes, and then we need a little bit more resolution here. And we'll just boop, pop that out and then tap off to get that actual geometry. And then we'll say split mask points into its own subtool. So this is just a proxy mesh, which is just kind of sitting inside of our mesh. For the nose, we can do the same deal, or we can just go in here and maybe do a cube mid and just pop that right out, and then go to say split mask points again. And now here we can do Z modeler, insert single edge loop. Let's get rid of these extraneous, and then we'll go through here and we'll just mirror and weld, and then we'll collapse these edges in, and that'll give us a little triangle here. And we'll go, and then for the mouth, again, this one might be easier. Let's do this. So we're going to take this, we're going to duplicate it off. We're going to hold down, we're going to go out of X Symmetry here, because we're going to make it a little bit lopsided. We're going to say mask lasso, and then mask pin. We'll go and unmask the back of the head. Now you can kind of clean this up, and we'll use ZRemesh to kind of get us most of the way there, I think. Something like that. So let's say this is our mouth, and of course we can change and move this mouth any number of ways. We can hold down Control-Alt and tighten that up. Again, we're working on a, go into solo mode, we're working on a clone or a duplicate of our original pumpkin here. So now another thing we could do is we could invert this, and in order to help ZRemesher out a little bit, I could go through here and I could H polish this to a flatter surface, because it's going to want to build in. Since again I'm going to use these as Booleans, I really don't need those ridges built in. We can invert that, so we have this. We can go into our geometry, edge loop mask border. Grab this one here, delete hidden, and then we don't have X Symmetry turned on because it's not symmetrical. Go into your geometry, ZRemesher, and it'll say depth size, let's say down to 0, half, and then we can just make this into some sort of workable geometry here. Now you can help it out if it's starting to get a little bit weird. We can go through here and we could say, you know what, ZRemesher, I want to keep these a little sharper. And I'm using Move Accu for this. You guys know what Move Accu is. That's under the Move brush, going in here to curve and turning on Accu curve so you can pull out two corners a little bit easier. Again, just helping ZRemesh out a little bit. can find these shapes a little easier. And these corners of the mouth I can always shrink down. Sometimes going from really thick to really thin and trying to maintain those good edge loops is a little bit tough for it, so I'm not overly concerned about that. And then here we can actually go through and we can just say, hey, you know what? Let's delete this polygon here. So you can do any sort of Z modeler stuff you want to do, and we can also go through here and we can say maybe do a quick polish by features, but first let's mask our open borders, and then we'll do a polish by features here. And that could be our start of our Boolean mesh. You could also go through and like use Z-spheres and go through and plot out your face, or use topology brush like we did for the eyes, but I guess this is fine. Actually, let's smooth out those borders too. So we're going to mask by features border, and then invert that, and then we'll do trying to maintain, okay, here's what we can do. So we can go through here, we can say QMesh polygroup all, and then hold down shift and pull these interior faces back. And now that we have those harder angles, we can go through here and group by normals, and now we can do a polish by features. There we go. And that'll kind of straighten those out a little bit. So now, mouth, nose, eyes, but we still don't have a real pumpkin shell. So let's go ahead and make that. So one, and we were talking about this earlier, so if you did want to like poly paint this, yeah, let's go ahead and do that so we can just talk about it a little bit. So we'll say, let's go to our basic, let's go to Skin Shader 4. So we're going to say RGB at 100% standard brush color fill object. And then through here, we could maybe add in a little bit orangier, darker, less saturated, RGB intensity down. And you can go through here and you could, let's turn off LSim, go through here and kind of spice it up a little bit, I suppose. And then we can go in a little bit oranger, a little more saturated, maybe even a little more yellow. And we could just put in, or you can go in here and like spray with an alpha. Get that kind of look. So it's like, okay, we have this, but it's still not a shell. So what we need to do is, well, there's a lot of different ways you can do this, but I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this off and hold down shift and turn everything else off except for those two. And then we can Z-remesh this. Let's see, I don't think we can Z-remesh it with, as long as you have symmetry on, I think it'll Z-remesh by default across whatever axis of symmetry in. I don't think it'll do it across radial symmetry, but that's okay. So we'll activate symmetry across the X, and we'll go ahead and say, let's go ahead and Z-remesh half, depth size down to 0. Depth size down to 0 just gives us more even quads. You don't have to do that. That's generally okay. If you have it higher, it'll try and build in these ridges a little bit more, which is also fine. So now we have these two showing. I'm going to go through here. Actually, it looks like this one needs to be, let's do a mirror and weld across the X. There we go. So we'll go ahead and do a project all. And it says, has polypaint. Do you want to get it? And say, yeah, sure. So we can go ahead and project our polypaint back. So now we have, this is our new lower res version, and then this is our higher res version. Yes, so let's go a little bit lower. So I'm going to take this one here, and we're going to say half. And you can have solo turned on. You can always snap back or project, even though you have solo on, I think. And I think it'll also project the polypaint as well. Project all. And then let's go half. Let's go project all. Okay, so now we need skin thickness. So like instead of going through here, because what you could do is you could, on this original one, you could do a Dynamesh sub, and then underneath Dynamesh, you have a shell option. You can actually create a shell with Dynamesh. We're going to be a little bit pickier with this. We're going to go through here, and we're going to say Control Shift. Let's grab Select Lasso, and I'm going to grab maybe this inside ring here, and we'll do an Auto Groups. And then we'll take these two. Let's go back to Select Rectangle. Hit Control W. Okay, so now we can make this shell. So we can go through here. You can do a panel loops if you want to, or we'll do QMesh polygroups all. Since there's just one polygroup, and we'll just pull in. And let's pull in quite a bit. Actually, let's not do QMesh. Let's do extrude polygroup all, because we don't want QMesh to start sticking things together, and it actually works a little bit faster. So we'll go ahead and pull in quite a distance. Now we can always change that distance. It's not difficult to do. Now we'll go down here. You can see our normals are reversed. Go ahead and display properties. We talked about this earlier. Let me see. Are they reversed? Now they're reversed. Let's see. Geometry mind if I delete hidden. Oh, sorry. Delete hidden. And then when you pull them in, they'll be reversed. And then you can go ahead and flip them out. So now we do have thickness in here. If you want to clean these up a little bit, you can go through here. If you want to, you can actually flip these temporarily. You can go through here and you can grab these ones and you can say, you know what, let's, because on the inside, it's not going to have ridges built in. It's going to be kind of a smoother, kind of, you scoop it out and stuff. So we're going to say, we'll do a polish by features. Just kind of smooth that geometry out. And then we'll go ahead and flip this back. Okay, so now we have our pumpkin. It's got thickness. If we want to verify that, we can go through here and we can say, insert a cube. Make this subtractive. Turn on live boolean. And then as we go out of solo mode, you're going to see as I start slicing into this pumpkin, it's going to be totally sliceable. Yay. So let's go ahead and delete that. And we're going to go back here. And now we've got our faces. So all of our face pieces here, we can make these subtractive. And that'll start slicing through our object. Now we want to make sure it slices all the way through. Easy enough to do. So we can go through here and we're going to turn on polyframe. Go into solo mode. And then again, just hold down shift to extrude all the way back through. Same thing for the nose here. We can just probably just push this one back. And then for the mouth, go through here. Actually, this one, let's leave that alone. So we'll take this one here and we'll say extrude and then shift and just pull these back. So now we have jack-o'-lantern. Now it is faceted along the side here, so if you want a nice smooth cut, just go back through here and say, you know, we can run a crease, turn on dynamic, and then the nose is fine. The mouth, probably the same thing. We maybe want to run a crease tolerance, turn on dynamic. And then we can go ahead and turn back on our stem here. Now, here's the caveat. We have one, and let's say we spent a lot more time on this one than we really did. And you know what? Let's do this. Let's go instead of a color spray, we'll go ahead, or you can do a color spray. Let's do this. I guess we'll keep that. We can do Z-add with a color spray. And then when we go through and spray bumps, it'll actually inherit a color, which is nice. If you guys saw the Zbrush Summit, they actually have a new slider, so you can actually have an alpha that stamps the texture completely. Our environment artists are really going to enjoy that. Let's go ahead and turn that Z intensity down. We can go ahead and add some bumpy stuff in here. So we have our original here. It's had all our detail and all our poly paint on here. Then we have this one, which it has some of the poly paint, but not a lot of the detail. But we don't want to project the inside of the stuff, so we just want to project the outside. So what we can do is we can have just these two showing. And then with this lower res one, hold down Control Shift, isolate this top poly group here. And then we're going to say project all, and then Control Shift tap. I'm going to go ahead and maintain those creases on those poly groups here just to keep those edges crispy. I can always smooth them out later. So we're going to say crease PG, and then isolate this again. Oh, crease PG, Control D to subdivide, isolate this top one here, project all. Control D to subdivide, isolate this top one here, project all. Control Shift tap to bring everything back, Control D to subdivide, isolate this top part here, project all. So now we're getting all of our detail back from our original. So we're in solo mode, we can tap this one and this one. And the only thing that's really changing is this hole in the top and the new shell that we have created. So this original we don't need anymore. Delete that one out of there. Like I said before, you can hold down Shift, turn off RGB on your smooth so you don't lose your poly paint. And now you can go through here and you can modify this, and then you can go through here and you can tighten up whatever you want to do. So you can do it through here with X symmetry, Y radial count of 12. You can go through here and kind of, and now you have really nice geometry. It's all nice quads, so it should behave a little bit more normal. So you can go back here and you can actually turn off your poly paint. Let's go back into sculpting mode here. like so. And then, you know, once you have the kind of the base figured out and everything's kind of, oops, dot stroke alpha off, Z intensity, lazy mouse off. Once you've got everything kind of dialed in, this is when you can start going through here and being like, okay, let's turn off. Ooh, that's okay. Because we're going to turn off radial symmetry anyway. Go in here with our Damien standard brush. And there's some really interesting stuff that's going on this. Let me show you on this pumpkin in particular, which is, you know, this can kind of go across. And there may be more elegant ways to do this type of thing too. Like you can go through, I mean, in Substance, like since this isn't really breaking the silhouette, you could probably do a really interesting, cool Substance Designer material that would be like an automatic pumpkin ridges generator, and you could dial in and out how thick the little dots are and stuff like that. That'd be a really fun project to do. Just kind of making like a pumpkin material that would have all those controls, striations and lumps and color, cavity detection and stuff like that. That you could just go through and make really, really detailed pumpkin material on arbitrary geometry or jack-o'-lantern geometry. Yeah, so another thing too is with your clay brush, you can go here in your alpha, maybe do an alpha 01 and turn this to a spray. And this will kind of add some lumps, and then you can drop that Z intensity down. And this will kind of give you some general lumps. Let's go ahead and maybe alpha 06. Kind of lump up this surface a little bit more. So you've got, there's another thing too in Substance Designer, would be more of a, you know, maybe I'll do this, because this would be kind of a fun project, or it's probably already been done. Go through here and make your primary kind of lumpy forms, and then on top of that you could dial in, you could blend in more high frequency detail, and then you could put in your pumpkin lines and all that good stuff. So anyway, we got everything back. Let's go ahead and turn this back on. Let's go ahead and turn on our colorize. Let's go ahead and go back to Skin Shader 4. Now one problem is the inside materials aren't colored, and it looks like we're going to need to make those yellower and maybe a little less saturated, but no big deal. So we can go through here with our poly frame here, and on the inside, let's turn off our poly frame. You know that there's polygroups in here. So we can go through, hold down Control Shift and isolate this one. We can go ahead and just fill it with that color, and then the inside here, just fill it with that color. So now, when it cuts through, it'll go ahead and you can see it's inside. Now, these inside cuts here that it's making, those are just live booleans right now. So we can go through here, we can like select the eyeballs, and we can like move these things around. Change like whatever kind of face that you want. But the cuts are leaving are white because those vertices are filled with white. So we'll go ahead and fill this one and the mouth and the nose with that color, and then that'll go ahead and match up when we perform that live boolean operation. And we can go ahead and hide that star. And then we can say you are kind of a dingy dark green. Ooh, maybe a little less saturated than that. And then on top of that, go back in again with your standard brush RGB and maybe paint in. You can put some lumps and stuff on this one too. It's all about how much time you want to spend. This would be like a block out for a jack-o'-lantern here. Now, I don't think Keyshot will do live booleans, but one thing we can do, let's go through here. Let's take this one. We're going to say dynamic smooth subdivision up to 3 or 4. Same thing for the mouth. Smooth subdivision 3, and even on the nose here, we'll go ahead and do it. Just so when we make the boolean, it's sometimes nice to have the mesh a little bit closer. So we have this pretty much done. Let's go ahead and do save as, new folder. And you could do variations on this all day long, because again, this is just a live boolean, so there's the ability to go through here. You're going to need to scale this out. Oh, there you go. And you change the face, swap the faces out and stuff, and go through. And you could even do possibly even if we go down, let's do sort of in level 1, like a bend curve deformer. You could go through with Z-spheres and you could pose these out. It's basically just like going through, and you could use Transpose Master to go through and drop everything down, move stuff around, and then pop it back over. But you could do some really, really fun stuff with this. But we have this here. So let's go here, and we don't need any start groups, I don't think. Is this one going to Boolean correctly? Yeah, okay. So let's do this. Let's make this, this will work fine. This will work just fine. Although, we may want to have a different material on the inside of the eyes. Let's see if Keyshot will transfer that over. So over here, instead of doing skin shader, we're going to go and let's go to material, and we're going to go to Z plugin. We're going to go to, what am I looking for here? Subtool Master. And we're going to say fill just the material on all my visible subtools here. And that's going to fill it with Skin Shader 4. And then for the inside here, let's grab basic material, but under the basic material, just so we can kind of get a visual representation of it. Under modifiers, we're going to crank up the diffuse and the ambient and the specular. And then for all these inside objects, we're going to say material. Oh, shoot, should have had that at 100. Color, fill object, color, fill object, color, fill object, and then select all these interior faces on this pumpkin here. Color, fill object, and then color, fill object. So now we have this material and the inside material. So if Keyshot transfers that over, that would be nice. So I'm going to take all of these, and we're going to say, Boolean, dynamic subdivision, make Boolean mesh. And then now we've got our U-mesh here, and we can go over to render, external renderer, Keyshot, send that on over. And again, we're just going to do cool. Send that over. One-sided mesh have thickness without losing detail. I saw one solution on Zbrush light videos with transpose and morph, but didn't understand it. You can mask and send stuff over. I'll have to see if I can do that. Let's see, file, edit, add geometry. Let's add a sphere. And then this sphere here, we're going to pull up into the head. And you know what? Let's go ahead and scale this non-uniformly if I can. Oh, it's just going to let me do. Can I scale? Yeah. Non-uniformly scale that sphere. And then on that sphere, we're going to say, I guess an area light. Where's my scene at? And for the background here, let's go to environments, outdoor, migrated. Do I not have any of my ZBrush ones? Oh, I guess I lost those. Let's see, do we have a dark outdoor? Not really, that's okay. We'll do an okay outdoor, but what we're going to end up doing anyways is the environment, the color. We don't really need to see the environment. I just want to have the environment there for like reflections and stuff. Let's see, color. And then for the materials, let's see, select parts of the material. Okay, that should work fine. So under materials here, we've got our area light. Let's go ahead and crank that up. Let's change that to watts. And we'll say it's like a 60 watt bulb in there, maybe 40 watt. And we can still move this around as needed. I guess I'll put this towards the bottom-ish. And then we'll say, okay, that's fine. And then for this outer shell, let me see, let's go into our material graph, and underneath texture map legacy, let's go to upgrade to new node. And then over here we have apply matte cap on there. That one I'm going to go ahead and turn off because we can just control. In fact, I may not even need this. Well, it does have vertex color on it, which is fine. And then for the other geometry, or the other material here, we'll say material graph this one. And then this one, we'll go ahead and switch to upgrade to the new node. And then we have apply matte cap here. We can go ahead and turn that off. And then here we can go through and say, want it to be a little bit shinier, but not too shiny. Okay, and ambient. Roughness we can dial back just a tiny bit. Diffuse transmission, this stuff I don't know this is gonna, we can kind of maybe, and, you know, you can replace this kind of stuff with like a subsurface material. It's an advanced material now, but it might be worth it, it might not. Maybe even the inside skin might be a better idea. So we go back to this one, and let's go from advanced to maybe a translucent, or maybe even just a skin. Like we could start there. Oops. Human skin, yes. And then on here, we could change this so that it's a little bit more pumpkin fleshy. And then our subsurface would probably be, again, and then you could change your roughness, be a little more rough. Now, one thing I should have done while I was in Zbrush would be to get rid of these really super hard surface Boolean edges. But, you know, that's okay. So again, we can go through here and we can say environment. Let's go to that color. Let's go just knock this all the way down to black. And then our actual environment here. Is that actually doing much? Yeah, I guess let's crank that up a little bit here. So anyway, here's your little jack-o'-lantern, and you can go through here with your scene, with your sphere, and oops, you can right-click it and say move. And again, because we have scale turned on, you can scale up or down the geometry. You can move the geometry here. So you can put that towards the bottom here. You can change the material. So underneath this area light, maybe a little bit more realistic. Anyway, jack-o'-lantern. Actually, let's go to our lighting. Right now it's on basic. Turn that back. Turn that at least on the product. I don't think you need to go as far as like jewelry, caustics, or anything like that. But give you a little bit of a better result, maybe. Yeah. So wrapping it up. Yeah, and you could. The one-sided mesh thickness is something we do when we do cloth. So it's basically just like I did with this pumpkin. If you have an original that has high-res detail, give it thickness and then project it back. And you would always have an original, because if you have a single-sided mesh with thickness, you know what, keep that, go remesh it or whatever, give it thickness, and then project your detail back on just to one side. Extract, like John says, also will work, because you're going to inherit the actual geometry and then extract thickness from that. It's not, yeah, I don't know. Oh, you know what? We might be able to do also, let's do it to add geometry plane. I've actually been in V-Ray a lot more than Keyshot lately, so I'm a little bit rusty. Go ahead and scale this up. So this would be like a rect lighting in V-Ray here. Go ahead and move this over. And then just like we were doing, again, I'm not, I guess that could also be an area light. And then for this one, we can say, turn off visibility to camera. And then we can drop this down to maybe something like that. How do Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles bend over if their shell spans from their thoracic vertebrae to the lumbar vertebrae? Yeah, I guess their little squishy bodies inside, yes, their lumbar is going to bend, but their shell's obviously not. So, yeah, I mean, if it was up to me, I guess the shells would be maybe just, it'd be much easier as far as animation goes to like make that shell just part of your thoracic. But you know, you can always um, cheat it as you need to. Yeah, exactly. The top part of the spine, since the shell is most. Yeah, so basically where your rib cage is where you could put the shell and keep it not so fancy on your rig, or if you don't mind crashing, heck with it. Cool. Marvel Designer simulate some fabric stretch across some cushion to simulate the pecs. Yeah, you could. And in fact, one thing we did a long time ago was this marvelous membrane we used for like creature wings, where we went through and animated and brought those into ZBrush. So we had like a little animatable membrane wing that we could use layers to animate. So I can kind of go through and so we had like this little membrane cloth. And then as we added layers, we could squash and stretch it, and it would be stretched across here. So this type of thing, for sure, you could do. And every time I type in a response, it shoots me down, so I end up missing a ton of stuff. So yeah, and on my channel, we'll get more into Maya and Substance Designer as we move forward. I think that's fun. That's fun stuff in there. So on Thursdays, I'll do that. Texture map bake workflow is Substance Painter for quick stuff. Marvelous or Marmoset for like production stuff. Cool. Cool. Yeah. Another thing you can do for that thickness, there's a method you can do for. Let me go ahead and pause this. Like if you're doing a cape, it's kind of hacky, but it kind of works. I'm trying to remember who did it originally. There's a book I read. I think it's Paul Gabry's book, where you can sculpt out a cape, and then it's going to be high res because you've subdivided it. But if you do it'd be like this. Make polymesh 3D. It's easier to kind of show than it is to explain in this case. So we have a cape here, like so, and then we've subdivided it a couple times, twice in this case. And then, so we're going through here and we're like sculpting out, oops, Z-add. We're sculpting out detail and stuff on this cape. But now we want to add thickness and not lose our detail. So it was something like you can delete lower. You can go through here. Let's do Shift S to store snapshot. Let's go in here to our morph target. Store morph target, and then go down here to your deformation, and you could do like a size or a offset. I don't know which direction I'm offsetting in, so I'm just going to kind of guess. Oh, good. Offset in the X, a negative amount, or however thick you want your cape. Go to your morph target and say create diff mesh. And then now that we have a diff mesh, hit Control N, and then we'll go ahead and flip. So now we have our, maybe not. Well, we have a cape. Let's see this. Control, tap this one, let's move this. Okay, so we have our cape with thickness. However, we've subdivided this and we only have one division in here, so we have to go through here and we have to say, so we have geometry, and then you can't hit reconstruct because these are already as low as I can go. So if you go through here and you do insert single edge loop, I don't remember, you can add one and you can reconstruct one. And then if you add one more, you can reconstruct. So now you can reconstruct back to your original in one division, two division. That's another way to do it. Cool. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and head out. Thanks everybody. Oh yeah, Keyshot does have a soft. Thank you for reminding me. Round edge shader. So to help that out a little bit, let's go ahead and select this geometry here, and or is it under the? God, it's been a long time since I've been in here. I know how to do it in V-Ray. This scene selection. This is so silly. Rounded edges, radius. Let's go ahead, let's switch our lighting back to product. And then under here, we have this selected in our scene, and then the round edge radius, we can crank this up. Maybe. Let's just say 1. I'm not sure what scale we're working at here, since we just started from a Zbrush primitive. Oof. I messed it up. But yeah, same thing in V-Ray, same thing in Houdini, same thing in Moto. You can do a round edge radius, and it'll go ahead and build in some rounded edges there. So. Cool. All right, everybody. Cool. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and head out. Got some PowerPoint presentations put together. I'll wait for Keyshot to come back. And I'll see you guys. I'll try and stream again this month. But if I don't get to, I'll see you guys next month. And we will go from there.